Hello everyone. Have you noticed that you are getting lied to all the time about scientific theories as such? I don't mean just specific theories here. I mean the concept of a theory, the very basic thing what a theory is. We are all getting lied to about that all the time. Well, lied might be a bit strong of a word, and that may be why you haven't noticed it. But people, and especially people in power, keep using theories entirely backwards, giving people the entirely wrong idea about what a theory as such is. They are feeding us very incorrect information. I have sort of known this for all of my adult life, but I never thought about it before. I just shrugged it off and dismissed it as bullshit. But a lot of people are buying into it. So, very basic thing. What is a theory? Well, a theory is a model for understanding something, maybe not the world as a whole, but an aspect of reality. We have theories in various branches of natural science and social science, and so on. And these theories, these models, are meant to help us understand, to help us explain, to help us get a better overview or a more nuanced view. They are there to help us overcome our prejudices and limitations. The basis of science itself is this. You look at the world, use the theories you have at hand, and when the theories can't explain what you're seeing, you devise better theories that fit better together with the actual evidence. However, this is not what people tend to be doing. With people, I'm talking about politicians, activists, demagogues, people in mass media, people in religion, and so on. They do it the other way around. This other definition of theory, this wrong definition of theory that we are indirectly getting taught all the time. This definition of a theory is that a theory is a tool that you use to convince people that whatever conclusion you have already decided on is the right one. People in science, people often get accused of cherry-picking facts, and this is a real problem. But out in mainstream society, we have an even worse problem with people cherry-picking theories. They are not interested in the truth. They are just interested in getting through whatever message they have already decided on. And I mean, an individual with an agenda or a group with an agenda has usually already decided on the conclusion, and it doesn't matter if a theory fits reality or not. The correct theory is the one that you can use, or at least shoehorn somehow, dishonestly or whatever, into arriving at the conclusion that you have already decided on. This becomes a huge problem when people are trying to understand, not only trying to understand the world, but also trying to understand each other and understand what the fuck we are talking about in the first place. Well, this video is sort of a response to a comment to my previous video. In this video, I explained why the men's rights movement is actually Marxist in nature and why this is a big problem for the men's rights movement, why their ideology is kind of ludicrous. In short, here's a brief and extremely oversimplified explanation of this whole thing. Okay, first we have the original Marxism with Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels. They have this idea that the history of mankind can be explained through making up two monoliths, two total constructs. We have, on the one hand, we have the working class, the proletariat, who are oppressed, and on the other hand, we have the bourgeois, the upper class, the middle class, the oppressors, the privileged ones. So we have this division between privileged and oppressed, and we understand everything as a struggle between these two groups. This model do have some merits, but it's way too oversimplified. It doesn't cover reality. This model has really big flaws, but it was useful at the time, and it can still be useful sometimes if you very much limit how you use it. If you reduce your worldview to being this, well, then we get the Soviet Union and the Gulag and everything. This kind of theory can't solve anything. It can help pushing positions forward a bit, but it cannot solve conflicts, it can only make conflicts. So, okay, we had this huge struggle, and then radical feminism comes along, and certain branches of post-colonial studies claiming that, okay, we will use this model, but let's replace class with gender or race. So we have the radical feminists using the exact same model, but instead of the bourgeois, we have the men, and instead of the proletariat, we have the women. Again, this model did have some merits, but when you reduce your worldview to this, it becomes destructive. And then comes the men's rights movement, who use this analysis through and through, but they use the radical feminist analysis right off the bat, but they invert it, claiming that, oh, the men are the oppressed gender and the women are the privileged gender, the women are the one in power. And like explained in my previous video, and like many other people, for example, Hannibal Victor 13 has explained in their videos, this worldview make no sense at all. And I personally believe that these MRA are honest. They do see actual problems with prejudice against men, bigotry against men, and so on. But they are stuck in this worldview where discrimination, bigotry, prejudice, etc. always must be an issue of two monolithic structures where one is privileged and one is oppressed, and we can't really understand these problems against men through this model. The model was flawed even when applied to class, and it became much worse when applied to women as the oppressed group, and when you invert it becomes even worse. So, okay, this is my main problem with men's rights movement at its best. I'm not talking about crazy MRAs harassing women and so on, and I'm not going to I mean, we have that kind of problem. It's a big problem, but I don't think all MRA are crazy. I've seen some that do have interesting points. Uh, that's that need to be said too. I mean, uh, but okay, in this video I wasn't really going to talk about feminism and MRA. It's just an example because this is where this whole thing got started for me. One of the commenters he sent several replies in my to my video, and it was obvious that he hadn't understood anything of what I was saying. But I'm convinced that he's completely honest. He's not a troll, and he's not stupid either. That's not the problem. But his definition of Marxism is the thing you use to convince people that the government need to spend more. And I realized that this cannot only be dismissed as bullshit. I mean, of course it is bullshit. It is completely backward. But he didn't make up this bullshit, and he's not just misinformed. He's not just misinformed. He has been fed incorrect information, and we all have. We have all been shown again and again that theories, all of them, not just Marxism, not just social science theories in general, but all kinds of theories or things you just cherry pick to fit whatever conclusion you has already decided on. And this is a huge problem in society, and I'm adding this to my list of problems in the world I really want to fight against. Because if we have this backward view of what a theory is, then we can't understand anything. We are at the mercy of charlatans and demagogues, dishonest or stupid politicians who are just trying to make us believe whatever they want us to believe. And we all need to think for ourselves. Science have wonderful tools for thinking. That is what science is about. But we need to understand the basic principles, not just the most common conclusions. And this is one thing I'm going to tell you now that I hope that most of you have already heard. But I think it's rather possible that most of you haven't even heard this. The physics of Newton are wrong. Yes, they are being taught in school, not because of some bullshit, least of all a conspiracy. The children are being taught Newtonian physics in spite of science knowing that Newtonian physics is wrong. And for good reason, because Newtonian physics is a good approximation in most situations. We can still use Newtonian physics in most contexts. In some contexts, we need to use Einsteinian physics with relativity and so on, but in most contexts, Newtonian physics is enough. You see, it is not either or. A scientific theory is not right or wrong. It is more or less accurate. So this is why social scientists tend to be kinda okay with Marxism, even when we have no sympathy whatsoever for communism or anything like that. We just see that, okay, Marxism is a flawed tool. It has very big limitations. People have to be careful when using it. Like I said before, if you overuse it, if you use it as the single basis for your worldview, then it will get destructive. But hey, it's just a tool, it's a flawed tool. But in politics, where people just pick a theory and go with it, then it becomes destructive right away. And so does radical feminism and men's rights activism when tied to this kind of black and white theoretical model. Reality isn't black and white, it is complex, and we need to see the complexities and try to understand them. Reality can never be squeezed into one theoretical model or another, and a model that is based on a dichotomy between two groups. Come on! A while ago, I made up a word, dichotomism, and I didn't make up the concept. You see, we have this distinction between word, concept, and phenomenon. A phenomenon is something that exists in physical reality, social reality, or psychological reality. And a concept is something we use to understand this phenomenon, and a word is something we use to describe this concept. So I didn't make up the concept of dichotomism. I got it from Professor Richard Dawkins, but he calls it, quote, the tyranny of the discontinuous mind, unquote, and that is way too cumbersome for me. I needed one single word, so I call it dichotomism. The basic thing here is that relying on dichotomism is a dead end. It's a prison for your mind. And this is not only a matter of false dichotomies. I mean, a false dichotomy is a dichotomism, but it's not the only dichotomism. Reasonable dichotomies becomes dichotomism as well when you overuse them. So anyway, I think a lot of you haven't learned anything today because you already knew the stuff, but think a bit more about it. Understand that not everyone understands this, and this is not because they are stupid or trolls or whatever. It is because they have been fed misinformation all their lives. And if you have shrugged off this bullshit, good for you. But remember that the bullshit is still out there and affecting people. And if you are one of these many people who have been affected by this bullshit, please watch this video one more time. Try to understand my entire message and ask questions, discuss what I'm talking about, and don't get fixated on the example. This whole thing with feminism and MRA, it's only one example. This basic problem, it goes for all fields. This is where I could start ranting about people who deny evolution or people who deny climate change or whatever, but there's really no need to do that. What I'm doing here is just giving you the basic tool for understanding the problem where the debate goes wrong, where you have moved from being fed information to being fed bullshit. You need to be able to analyze information and comprehend it in a way that helps you sort the bullshit from the good information and draw good conclusions. And if you didn't already understand everything I said today, these things I said, they are a huge step towards that, so please try to learn. Okay, that's all I have to say on this subject for now. Have a good time and live long and prosper.